Sunil reached out to me 3 weeks back and I was like, dude, are you serious? Because I haven't really thought about my life in the perspective of Bhagavad Gita, to be very frank with you all. And when Sunil said that it's been going on for 15 years in the temple,
10 years.
10 years, I have to confess that I have not listened to his speech except for occasional presentations like this in a bigger forum at the temple. So one day, hopefully, I will be, creating that time which I have personally not invested in creating to attend his classes and share his discussions and knowledge. Having said that, it did intrigue me a little bit about what does Gita attach to my life, my present life? How does it impact my present life? And it was definitely a journey of self-realization, to some extent at least, and it's always a process, ongoing process. So I have titled my presentation today as The Battlefield of Life, and that's exactly what it is. We are all in a battlefield. It made me think, what is life? Where am I? And it's very rhetorical, it's very cliched, but I thought of my life as a process, God as a process. It was the birth, the life, and the death. G, generation, O for order, D for disintegration. It's just every day it's a process. My life is a process. I look at God as a process. Why is it a process? It's not the process improvement that Sunil and I have been discussing on a day-to-day basis into the wee hours of the morning for our executive MBA classes, but definitely something that intrigued me. It's something that I thought was a way to regulate myself, regulate the happenings on a day-to-day life. So with that in mind, I have a process, I have this whole thing in front of me. How am I supposed to regulate it? And I felt, yes, Gita is the way. Gita has some teachings in it. It's not just the Gita, it's all the spiritual books that we have that has given us the guidelines and the principles to regulate this process. It was very interesting. A little story that I came across was a story of a policeman. He fell in love with this beautiful woman. He married her. After 4 years of marriage and 3 kids, this wife comes to him and says, dude, you and I have a lot of things in common in our profession. And he goes like, seriously, profession? You're a housewife managing 3 kids in the house? And he goes like, just listen to me. Both of us are overworked, both of us are underpaid, and both of us are totally mistreated. We have little kids, little people calling for help. You deal with it as a cop, I deal with it as a mom. And in the end, we are abused and we try to solve their issues. In the end, there's always one person who's dissatisfied. So that's life in a perspective. Be it a policeman, a housewife, a man going to the office, a businessman, a person who runs the temple, a person who runs the school, it doesn't matter. We are all trying to regulate this process. Then I thought of the Bhagavad Gita, the war. What is it? Arjuna is standing on a chariot. Krishna is trying to give him his advice. And I'm not sure if it is something that Sunil has already covered in his speeches, but I'm sure it is just nothing but our own life. It's me standing in front of you at this present moment, trying to regulate the process. The chariot is nothing but my body. Arjuna is nothing other than my own ahamkara, which is my arrogance within me. Krishna is my higher conscience. It's not conscious, it's conscience. And I'm in this battlefield of life, which is nothing but the Kurukshetra. And the Pandavas are none other than my own 5 senses. And what am I trying to do? I'm standing in this battlefield of life, trying to control my 5 emotions with my own ahamkara, in my own body, trying to reach out to my higher conscience and trying to control and defeat this kurus called the emotions. And what are the 2 opposing forces that exist in my life in this battlefield? It's nothing but my struggle between my higher and my lower self. Seriously, these are all too profound a thought for a person like me who just doesn't think. I'm the kind who does do. So thanks to Sunil, I really did some introspection here. So basically, what is my ultimate goal? There doesn't have to be a goal, there has to be a goal. We can argue, there can be a nice discussion on it, there has to be a motivation or a lack of motivation. But in the end, what are we trying to do? Reach sanity. We take a left turn, we go insane. We take a right turn, we reach calmness and sanity. So basically, that's what we are trying to do. We are trying to reach this kind of a sanity in this battlefield of life. It was very interesting. My husband introduced me to this book, David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell. And if you have not read the book, it's just a fantastic book to just go through. And it was a very interesting parallel that struck me between this story and the Bhagavad Gita. The setting is beautiful. It's a valley of Elah. It's got these two beautiful mountains, steep sides. You've got the Israelis on one side. The Philistines are coming down with their army to defeat the Israelis. And the whole deal is just happening in this valley, this whole battle. So the Israelis figure out, okay, we have this huge army coming down this valley. We need to face them. Let's position our armed forces. So they get their guys, they line them up, and the Philistines are powerful. They're coming with their entire army. They're huge, humongous in number. And they have this guy who's leading the pack. His name is Goliath, a giant, a 7-foot giant. And he's in heavy armor. Talk about Iron Ages. So this guy is garnered in the entire armor, suited up with a javelin. And he is huge. He just thumps down slowly down this valley. And right in front of him is this little guy who's just holding his sword and this whole shield and walks in front of him. One imagines a giant being shielded by a minion right in front of him. No idea, but that's how it works. And for 40 days, the Israelis are still standing on one side, the Philistines on the other side, and every single day, twice, this Goliath comes out and says, "Who is the strongest among the Israelis? Come out, let me fight you. I will kill you and throw you to the birds as a prey." Nobody moves an inch from the Israeli side. They're freaking out, just looking at the size of this giant in front of him. And then there's a little 8-year-old boy. He comes along, gives food to his brothers, and he says, "What's going on? Let me go fight him." And the king Saul, he goes like, "No, you're an 8-year-old boy. There are bigger guys out here who wouldn't dare fight against this Philistine. Here you are offering your help." He goes, "Nah, I can do it. Just send me." So all he does is takes a sling, 5 smooth stones, goes to fight against Goliath. He wins. He hits this stone with the sling from a distance between his eyes. Immediately, Goliath falls down and the battle is won. So what do we learn from this? Is there any story? Does it make any sense? It's just a story from the Bible. But Malcolm beautifully analyzes this whole process. He says, there is a flaw in this whole system. The flaw is that the people of the Israelites, were scared to face this. The fear was overcoming their existence. All they had in their mind was fear. This little boy, his presence was much bigger than the fear. So many a times, we are held back because of our fear. And that's exactly what Gita says. Don't give in to your fear. Don't let the emotions cloud your rational thinking. It's all about how you approach a problem. It's very simple. It need not be David and Goliath. It need not be Arjuna or Krishna. It's just a practical aspect of life that we all can take lessons from. So the story was that this giant Goliath had something called acromegaly for the doctors out here. He was a huge giant. He had vision issue. That's why he had this little guy guiding him in front of him. He could not for the life of him see beyond 3 feet. So he had vision issues. He was always seeing 2. That's why he said, "Come to me." And David was smart. He didn't go to him. He hit him from a distance. So for all practical purposes, Goliath couldn't have defended himself. But the Israelis did not see any of these things because the fear was overcoming their rational thinking. And actually, Goliath is powerless. He doesn't have the power to fight him because this guy is armored in iron. He's coming down a steep valley, which is not easy to walk along. So David could easily run because all he had was a sling and 5 stones. So finally, David is deadly. There was the physicists can acknowledge that there was some calculations done with the speed and the distance and the angle in which he was hitting the sling that can actually impact as heavily as a handgun. So what does it all teach? Krishna putting down his weapon and saying, I can't do it because I'm intimidated by what I'm seeing here. Or the Israelis saying, I can't deal with this because I have a giant coming in front of us. The only thing that I would say is that misconceptions. That's something that Sunil did allude to when he was talking. Misconceptions is the one that obscures our success. We imagine a lot. We overanalyze it a lot. Sometimes it's just down to the basics. It's just how you compartmentalize your thinking and you just put it all together in a very simple format rather than overdoing this whole process analysis. And if you have the correct idea, definitely any Goliath can be defeated. Simple take-home points. Size does not equal power. Of course, you have the Pandavas who are 5, the Kauravas who are 100. In a very layman terms, we've got the battlefield, we've got the Pandavas versus the Kurus. It doesn't matter. It's all how you approach the war. It could be the war of your personal life, it could be the Kurukshetra, or it could be the war of the Philistines. As I said, don't give in to your fears. Believe in what you have. Make use of your strength. And never ever underestimate the capabilities. So these are the lessons that I took home from the story that I have read both in Bhagavad Gita, the Mahabharata, and also from this little story from the Bible. Having put my own thought process in a perspective as a process, how to optimize the process, how to channelize the energies and leverage your strength, the recent happenings that really impacted me personally, and of course some of us in the community, is the Chennai floods. For some reason, natural calamity affects me more than anything. I was deeply affected by the earthquake, by the 9/11 and the Chennai floods recently. And Sunil and I have talked about this little clip that we saw on the Facebook. I hope the link works. This is about a little lady from the slum who was interviewed by one of the relief workers. So I'm going to leave you with some thoughts after this little video presentation.